Imagine this: late at night, your husband bursts through the front door, face twisted in pure rage. "You ruined me," he screams, slamming divorce papers on the table. "You leaked my company secrets, you took the money, you slept with the enemy." But he has no idea. Every single move you made was to stop him from spending the rest of his life in prison. Hey everyone, welcome back to Betrayal and Revenge Stories. Today's story is number 12, Betrayal for Protection. This isn't your typical cheating tale. This one is darker, deeper, and packed with twists that will leave you questioning everything. Buckle up, grab a drink, turn the lights down, and get ready for a full-length emotional roller coaster. Let's dive in. Liza Bennett had been married to Mark for 9 years. They met at a tech conference in Chicago. She was a sharp financial analyst. He was the rising cybersecurity star with big dreams. They fell in love fast over cheap conference coffee and long strategy talks. 2 kids later, Emma, 8, and little Lucas, 5, they built a beautiful modern home just outside Seattle. Mark worked as senior security architect at Nexus Dynamics, a powerful defense contractor. Great salary, stock options, the kind of job that covered private school tuition and summer trips to Hawaii. But the last 18 months had been hell. Mark came home later every night. Dark circles. Barely ate, barely spoke. Liza told herself it was the pressure. His boss, Jetty Harlan, was demanding impossible deadlines on a massive government contract. One slip and the company could lose everything. One rainy Tuesday night, everything shifted forever. Mark was locked in his home office at 1 a.m., door slightly open. Liza brought him chamomile tea and found him staring at his screen, face ghost white. "Baby, you need rest," she whispered. He didn't look up. "Jetty wants me to install this backdoor protocol tomorrow. Claims it's for testing, but the audit logs are being routed to some external server I don't recognize. Something feels completely wrong, Liza." She placed the tea down gently. "Then refuse. Tell him no." Mark gave a bitter laugh. "You don't say no to Jetty Harlan. He built my career. He can end it too." That conversation haunted her. Over the following weeks, she watched her husband slowly unravel. He drank more, snapped at the kids over small things. One night he whispered, "If this deal collapses, we could lose the house, the cars, everything. Jetty says the feds are watching us closely." Liza started investigating quietly. She still had contacts from her analyst days, old colleagues who owed her favors. What she uncovered made her blood run cold. Jetty Harlan was under secret investigation for years of shady accounting. This new contract was his escape hatch, but only if certain security flaws stayed buried. Mark was being lined up perfectly as the fall guy, the senior technician whose error would take all the blame when the fraud exploded. She tried talking to Mark gently one Sunday morning while the kids played outside. "Honey, I think Jetty is setting you up. The logs, the back doors, none of it looks normal." Mark's eyes flashed with anger. "Don't start this. Jetty is like a mentor, almost a father. You're just paranoid because you're home with the kids all day." The words hurt, but Liza let it go. She kept digging anyway. 2 weeks later she found the proof. Hidden in Mark's encrypted work drive that he accidentally left open one exhausted night. Internal memos from Jetty. Ensure Brooks signs off on the final protocol. When the audit hits, he becomes the scapegoat. Our bonus structure keeps us protected. Liza's hands shook as she copied every file onto a secret USB drive. Her husband was walking straight into prison time, ruined reputation, financial destruction. And he was completely blind to it. That night she made the hardest decision of her life. She reached out to Jenna Voss, CEO of Nexus's fiercest rival, Sentinel Secure. She had met her once at an industry event. Professional. No nonsense. She used a burner email. "I have critical information that could expose corruption at Nexus Dynamics, but I need ironclad protection for my family." Jenna replied in under 2 hours. They met in a quiet suburban coffee shop far from home. Lawyers present. No names on documents. She handed over the files with one strict condition. My husband must never know this came from me. Make it look like an internal leak. Jenna studied her carefully. Why risk everything? Because I love him enough to let him hate me if it keeps him alive and out of prison. The leak dropped 3 days later. Sentinel Secure publicly exposed serious security vulnerabilities in Nexus's government bid. Stock price crashed. Federal agents swarmed the Nexus headquarters. Mark came home that evening like a hurricane. He slammed the front door so hard the walls shook. They're saying it's an inside job. Jetty is furious. My credentials were used. Someone accessed the system from outside. Liza stood frozen in the kitchen, heart pounding. Maybe it was a real hacker. Mark laughed, cold and furious. No. They traced the IP, and $25,000 just appeared in an offshore account tied to my login. Someone framed me, or paid me to betray the company. Liza felt the room spin. She hadn't expected the money trail. Jenna must have created it to protect her identity. Mark stepped closer, eyes burning with betrayal. Did you do this? Have you been going behind my back? No, she lied calmly. I would never hurt you like that. But the doubt was planted. Over the next weeks, Mark fell apart. Investigators grilled him for hours. Jetty suspended him. Old colleagues stopped returning calls. At home, he slept in the guest room and looked at her like she was poison. One night, the explosion came. I saw the bank records. He shouted, "That 25 grand. You think I'm an idiot? You met with someone, didn't you? You slept with Jenna Voss for money and sold me out." Liza's chest ached. Mark, stop. You're wrong about all of this. Wrong? He threw his phone against the wall, shattering it. Jetty showed me the logs. You've been distant for months, sneaking around. This explains everything. You cheated. You betrayed our family for cash. Little Emma came downstairs crying from the yelling. Lucas hid under his blanket. Liza's heart broke into pieces watching her children terrified of their own father. She didn't fully defend herself. Couldn't. Not while the investigation was still active. One wrong word and Jetty would destroy them all. Mark moved out the following week into a small downtown apartment. He took the kids every other weekend, but the visits were tense and painful. Liza cried herself to sleep every single night. But she kept feeding anonymous evidence to the investigators. More documents, timestamps, secret recordings she had risked everything to capture. Months dragged by. Mark grew thinner and more bitter. He filed for divorce, accusing her of adultery and financial betrayal. Liza's lawyer told her to stay silent. The truth will come out when it's safe. Then the hammer finally dropped. One crisp October morning, federal agents raided Nexus Dynamics. Jetty Harlan was arrested in his luxury corner office on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted bribery. The evidence was overwhelming. The case made national news. But the biggest bombshell came in the official court documents. Mark Bennett had been completely cleared. Investigators proved he had been deliberately targeted and manipulated as the scapegoat. His credentials had been used without his knowledge through sophisticated technical tricks. Mark sat alone in his tiny apartment staring at the news when the full report dropped. Page after page of evidence. And buried in the details were timestamps only someone with intimate home access could have known. He drove to their old house that same evening. Liza was watering flowers in the front yard when his car screeched into the driveway. She stood up slowly, heart racing. Mark looked like a broken man, eyes red, hands trembling. "You did all of it," he said quietly. "The leak, the evidence. You saved me and let me destroy you." Liza took a deep breath. "Come inside, Mark. They sat at the same kitchen table where they used to eat family breakfasts. She poured 2 glasses of cold water. I found the memos, she said softly. Jetty was going to pin everything on you. Prison. Total financial ruin. The kids losing their father. I couldn't let that happen to our family. Mark stared at the table, tears falling. So you went to Sentinel. You became the traitor in everyone's eyes. I became your shield. Her voice broke. I let you hate me because your hate kept you alive. Every time you called me a cheater, every hateful message, I reminded myself that you were still free. That Emma and Lucas still had their dad. Tears streamed down Mark's face. I called you horrible names in front of our daughter. I filed divorce papers claiming you sold me out for money. I know. She reached across and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. But Jetty is in custody now. Nexus is collapsing. And you've been offered a senior director position at Sentinel. Jenna made sure your record stayed clean. Better pay. Fresh start. Mark gave a shaky laugh through tears. Jenna, the woman I accused you of sleeping with, she was never more than professional. I met her once in that coffee shop with lawyers present. That's all. Long silence filled the kitchen, heavy but healing. Why didn't you tell me the truth? He whispered. Because you wouldn't have believed me. You trusted Jetty completely. You would have warned him, and he would have buried you even faster. Mark stood, walked around the table, and pulled her into his arms. The hug was desperate, years of pain and guilt pouring out. I don't deserve you, he said into her hair. I failed you in every possible way a husband can fail. Liza held him tight. You didn't fail, you were manipulated by a monster. Now we choose, rebuild together, or walk away. But I won't hide the truth anymore. The revenge was quiet, but devastating. Jetty Harlan's trial became a media spectacle. Liza sat in the back of the courtroom every day, unnoticed. When the prosecution played the secret recordings she had risked everything to obtain, Jetty pressuring Mark to sign the fraudulent protocols, Jetty's arrogant face turned pale. Mark testified clearly and powerfully. He described exactly how his boss had isolated him, altered logs, and prepared him to take the full fall. The jury took only 4 hours. Guilty on every single count. Jetty received 14 years in federal prison. His assets were seized. Nexus Dynamics filed for bankruptcy. Many innocent people lost jobs, but Mark helped dozens of them find new positions at Sentinel. 6 months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Liza and Mark stood barefoot in their backyard, under a simple white arch covered in wildflowers. Not for divorce this time. For a private vow renewal ceremony surrounded only by the people who mattered most. Emma and Lucas, dressed in their Sunday best, threw rose petals with giggles that filled the air. Sarah, Liza's best friend who had known the full truth from the darkest days, stood as witness, wiping tears. Mark held Liza's hands tightly, his voice thick with emotion, as tears streamed down his face, without shame. Liza, I stood in this very yard and called you a traitor. I accused you of the worst betrayal a wife could commit. I looked into your eyes and saw only lies when all you were doing was sacrificing everything to save me. You let me hate you. You let our children see their father break their mother, all so I could stay free. I will never forgive myself for the pain I caused you. But today I promise with every beat of my heart that I will spend the rest of my life earning back your trust. I will love you louder than my mistakes ever were. I will protect you the way you protected me. You are my hero, my shield, my everything. Liza's tears fell freely. Her voice trembled but stayed strong. Mark, there were nights I cried alone wondering if I had lost you forever. But every time I doubted, I remembered why I did it. because loving you meant saving you even if it broke me. Today we start again. Not as the same people, but as stronger ones. Together, they kissed as the children cheered and Sarah clapped through happy sobs. The moment was raw, beautiful, and deeply healing. They bought a new house closer to the mountains, with a big backyard for the kids to run wild. Mark thrived at Sentinel, finally working in a place that valued integrity. Liza returned to consulting work part-time, helping companies build stronger ethical security practices while being there for Emma and Lucas after school. The children laughed freely again. Family dinners became loud, warm, and full of joy, filled with silly stories, inside jokes, and the kind of love that had been missing for too long. 1 year after Jetty's arrest, they returned to the small beach cabin from their honeymoon. Same fairy lights strung across the porch. Same gentle ocean waves. As the sun dipped low, Mark built a bonfire on the sand. The flames crackled warmly against the cool evening breeze. He pulled out a thick folder, every divorce paper he had filed, every hateful text he had sent her during those dark months, every accusation that had cut her so deep. "I don't need these anymore," he said, his voice cracking. "They belong to the man I was, the blind, angry fool who almost lost the best thing in his life." He threw the entire folder into the flames. Sparks flew upward as the papers curled and turned to ash. Mark and Liza stood arm in arm, watching the past literally burn away. Liza leaned her head on his shoulder, tears glistening in the firelight. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's surviving together, healing the wounds, and loving even harder than they tried to break you. "We made it, Mark. We really made it." Mark kissed the top of her head, holding her closer than ever. "Because of you. Always because of you." If you've ever done the right thing and been hated for it, if you've ever loved someone enough to let them believe the worst about you, just to save them, then this story was made for you. Drop it in the comments if Liza's quiet strength and their emotional reunion gave you chills and tears. Tell me honestly, would you leak the secrets to protect your spouse, even if it meant they might hate you forever? Or would you try to convince them first? I read every single comment. If this story touched you deeply, smash that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications. New betrayal and revenge stories drop every single week. The next one is even darker. You don't want to miss it. Thank you for staying until the very end. You are stronger than you know. See you in the next story.